Welcome to Smith History, separating the Smith from the myth. Today, we're sinking our teeth into a food-themed episode, a full-course meal of memories, mishaps, and moments that didn't seem funny at the time, but now, oh, they're delicious. Season's Eatings, everyone. My name is Brian Smith. For a, shall we say, appetizer to this story, let me start with some of the lighter moments in Smith history. And by lighter, I mean emotionally lighter, not calorie lighter. Nothing in Smith history is calorie lighter. Now, I've already told you stories in the past about food in solo episodes. The time my mother made me a fake pecan pie. The time I dropped a dollop of mustard on the cement of my brother Randy's barbecue, and he acted like it was a can of yellow paint. And I told you the story of 1973, where I'm convinced my parents fed my brothers and me horse meat. So we start with what I call the buffet incident. A dinner and horror show all in one. Many years ago, Patty and I took our dad on one of our classic day trips. Now, we did this pretty often. We paid for everything, showed him a good time, and in return he gave us, well, character development. We stopped at a buffet restaurant before heading home. Now, my dad had a habit, a gift really, for choosing the worst possible place to sit. He always insisted we sit away from people, far away. As in, let's sit on this elevated stage in the back like we're about to perform a dinner theater production. So, there we were, isolated from the chaos for about, 30 seconds. Because the moment we sat down with our plates, a large convention of mentally challenged, disabled, and mentally unstable clients came pouring in. And where did the staff seat them? Right next to us. So Dad's attempt to isolate us had backfired like a bad pressure cooker. Suddenly we were surrounded by screaming, yelling, and then the vomiting started. And followed by the unmistakable aroma of incontinence. I paid for Dad's meal, but I did not pay for this dinner theater experience. Now, I've heard of after-dinner entertainment, but this was dinner in a horror show. Dinner in a side of trauma. Whatever you want to call it. And I should have learned this lesson decades earlier. Never, and I mean never, let Dad choose the seating. Now, food in the Smith family isn't just important. It's a way of life. We don't eat to live, we live to eat. They say you can't have your cake and eat it too, but I buy 2 cakes and I eat them both. For our next course, let's go back to 1973. Phoenix, Arizona, the surface of the sun. We were staying with my dad's brother Dallas and his lovely wife Linda. Mom, Dad, Dallas, and Linda went out for the day, leaving 4 young boys and a 2-year-old alone in the house with no food, no snacks, no money. We had tap water and heat stroke. I was 15. F was 14. The twin Tears were 12. Kyle was 2. Mom and Dad at this time were living like they had retired to paradise, and apparently retired from parenting as well. They left and we searched the fridge immediately. Empty. We searched the cabinets. empty. Then I saw it. A massive cookie jar in the corner. It was my last hope, my promised land. I opened the lid, and hallelujah, I had struck gold. That cookie jar was full, I mean full, of cookies. At least 100. I told my brothers, and they descended on that cookie jar like hyenas on a wildebeest. It was a National Geographic special, a Savage Kingdom moment, and we ate every single cookie. Not a crumb was left, not even a molecule. A few hours later, the adults returned. I distinctly remember Dallas walking in and saying, "I'm starving, Linda. Do we have anything sweet to eat?" And Linda, with confidence only a woman unaware of the Smith boys' appetite could possibly have, she said, "Oh yes, Dow. I've got a whole jar of cookies I've been saving just for you." She walked to the cookie jar, and she opened the lid and said, "They're right here. Oh, they're gone." She had underestimated the Smith boys. Now Jeff was undersized, but don't let that fool you. He was a cookie monster. Rick and Randy weren't called the Twin Terrors for nothing. Kyle was 2 at that time, but he loved cookies too. And me? I was the strategist, the ringleader. I was the general of Operation Cookie Jar. Now we looked as innocent as cat burglars. And Dallas and Linda learned nothing from this food faux pas. Months later, Dallas took me to a funny car tournament at the Phoenix Speedway. Just me and Dallas. Wife Linda lovingly packed 8 submarine sandwiches, and they were full to the max of turkey, cheese, Italian meats, dressing. She wrapped each in foil like a precious cargo. Dallas handed me the bag. I was 16. I was growing. I was hungry. And after several minutes of the vibrating from the roar of the engines, literally vibrating, it increased my appetite. So while Dallas was very focused on the races, I ate one of the subs. Then another. My stomach was growling louder than the funny cars. After a couple hours, I remember Dallas saying, "Brian, I'm getting hungry. Time to eat a couple of subs." I handed him the bag. There was 1 sub left. The look in his face. I hadn't seen that expression, well, since the cookie jar incident. It was shock and awe, and a touch of fear. When we got home, Dallas didn't talk about the racing. He talked about my eating. And this was a man who was about 6'2", 250 pounds. He could out-eat most humans, but not that day. Not against a teenage me. And know this, Dallas and Linda had a son nicknamed Bean, who was close to 300 pounds. They should have been used to large appetites, but the Smith appetite is a different species. All right, next on the menu, I'm going to stop sugarcoating it and talk about the time Patty, Dad, and I went to a barbecue at my brother Kyle's house. Now this was years ago, years before even Nathan was born. That's how far back I'm going. Kyle wanted to do all the grilling at his apartment, and bless his heart, he tried. But the burgers he cooked were burned on the outside and somehow raw on the inside. It was a culinary phenomenon I hope to never experience again. Now, we didn't want to hurt his feelings. He was young and sensitive. So in the beginning, we picked at the hamburgers like we were removing glass. But I can't eat raw meat. I looked at Patty and she was ready to vomit. She actually did on the way home. I tried to eat just the burnt part, and I hid the raw meat in a napkin. Watching my dad try to eat a raw burger while maintaining his composure was something to behold. This was a man who historically had Mom burn his burgers to charcoal. We were raised on well-done food, in particular, burgers. And well, Kyle's burgers just couldn't cut the mustard that day. And frankly, Dad couldn't fake it after a while. He had to spill the beans. He told Kyle the burgers weren't done. Kyle tried, he really did, but the food was inedible. Now that day I was so hungry I could have eaten a horse. And looking back, honestly, a horse would have been a better option. But the icing on the cake, Dad recooked his own burger. That was the first and last time I ever saw him grill. That was also the first and the last barbecue of Kyle's I attended. After that, we became loyal fans of takeout whenever we visited Kyle. So, what have we learned today? Besides the fact that the Smith appetite is a force of nature, and that our family can turn any meal into a story worth retelling. I want to bring home the bacon here because the bread and butter of this podcast is simple. I record Smith stories for future generations. These stories are the recipes of our past, sometimes sweet, sometimes spicy, sometimes burnt on the outside and raw on the inside, but always worth telling. Kyle was a hard nut to crack when it came to critiquing his barbecue skills, and I'm hoping he takes this barbecue story with a grain of salt and be as cool as a cucumber. And Kyle's burgers were not my cup of tea, as they say. Now, my podcasts are as American as apple pie, and these Smith stories, they're as nutty as a fruitcake sometimes. Our food stories are hard to swallow, but every single one is true. I hope my family takes these stories with a grain of salt, because these Smith stories are finger-licking good. They're mouth-watering, the kind that stick to your ribs and stay with you long after the plate is empty. These stories are what separate the Smith from the myth. They remind us of who we are. They keep our family legacy alive, one bite at a time. And that, my friends, is what separates the Smith from the myth. I hope it was food for thought.